Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. Today, going to take a more personal view of what it's like if you start to, what shall we say, refrain from paying certain taxes, if you challenge the system, if you don't believe that what is being asked of us is correct, if you believe perhaps that actually paying certain taxes is in fact funding terrorism, that it's actually killing men and women and children across the world by the actions of the government. So I'm very pleased today to introduce my guest here in the studio, Mr. Wilks. We're just calling you Mr. Wilks for the purposes of this video because after all, nobody wants to be identified necessarily, although I've put my face on above the parapet. So Mr. Wilks, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richard. Great to be here. Thank you.
It's lovely to have you here. And you wrote to me saying you'd like to share the story of your protest against the various taxes that we've got and your experiences with people like the enforcement officers and the council and how they react. And I think it's interesting for people to know what it's like and what to expect when you push back against these governmental tyrannies.
That's right, yeah.
So where should we start? Should we start with what made you decide to even question?
I think it's important firstly to reiterate that what we said earlier, that it's not a refusal to pay. I'm quite willing to pay if I know that the money is going to the right areas.
Yes.
In our individual towns, cities, etc., etc. But when I realised that wasn't necessarily the case, I attended some seminars quite locally to the area, and once I found out quite early on that our council tax isn't necessarily going directly to our local council, it's going to central government, and then our local towns and cities are given a budget to perform to. When I realised that, and fundamentally that it's going to my money along with everybody else's that acquiesces to pay, it's funding terrorism at the end of the day. That money, where did the government get that money, to go to war?
And the thing, I mean, to me, they seem to have plenty of money to go to war and fund wars that nobody's asked for, and yet you will walk down the street and there's plenty of homeless people or people who are on benefits that need help that are being penalised left, right and centre.
That's right, exactly that. And once I realised that, and I thought, hang on a minute, nobody's come to me to say, do you support our country going to war? And I think most of our community would say no, we don't want that. But we're not being asked, so therefore the government aren't actually working for us, they're working for themselves. I'm quite willing to pay for local amenities. I mean, if every household in each of our cities and towns were paying council tax to our local council, we'd have streets of gold, no potholes.
That's so true.
It would be a beautiful place to live, but we're not facing that because they're not working for us, the individuals. And when we turn up to council meetings, friends of mine have turned up, they just don't get the answers.
No, and we know now that the money that we pay doesn't go just to the council in that one area. It goes to central government, to the Consolidate Fund, and then it comes back as a budget with strings attached.
And then normally the councils don't have enough budget for the year, and they get these loans, Lobo loans they're called, to boost up to what they can do to actually, I suppose, make us sort of satisfied to what's actually going on locally. But behind the scenes, they're bankrupt.
Yes, and these, I mean, they need these loans because, as you say, I mean, I think the council where I am is about £170 million in debt. And you think, how do you get to £170 million in debt? And then if I'm in debt or a bit behind with the council tax, they're very swiftly on my case saying, well, we're going to take you to court if you don't pay up. And you go, hold on a minute, you're £170 million in debt. There's no logical reason to this.
Absolutely. And that's when I started to think more about it. And I thought, well, once the war issue came up, and I thought, well, that's it. Now that's the case. And it's, I believe, indirectly treason to actually contribute to war anyway, when you especially don't agree to it. So that's when I started to pay council tax and see what happens. I'd done the courses, so I expected to get certain letters from the council. which I did in due course. I think it's 3 months after I hadn't paid. I got the first letter saying I was in default of payment.
Did you tell them, just as a matter of interest, did you tell them that you weren't going to, or did you just halt the payment?
Yeah, I started on the notice scheme, which Peacekeepers is a great website to follow. And I followed the notices to the chief executive asking for the obligation to pay council tax. And they always came back with the 1992 Finance Act.
Yes.
Of course, that's an act. And I have got a letter from the chief executive telling me in a letter that she could confirm that I had no contract with the council.
So, oh right, so you've got that actually in writing, that
Yes.
there is no contract.
There's no contract.
So if there's no contract, where's the obligation?
Absolutely. So once I had that, and I thought, well, I've got no contract with you. I'm a living person, and we had notices going backwards and forwards, letters going backwards and forwards. Eventually, it was handed off to a legal representative, which again, 1992 Finance Act. So I thought, well, I'm getting nowhere here. I know where I stand in sovereignty and truth, and I continue to not pay. And then it was handed over to the courts, allegedly.
Yes.
And they
So did you get one of those summons?
I got a summons
that is
inviting
very
me.
dubious,
Yeah.
very dubious about where it's come from, with no court stamp.
Nothing.
And because Julia has had one of these, and she's invited to go to the court. Only she has to talk to the claimant
Yes,
first to see if they've got an appointment. And I thought, hang on, at what point if you're summoned to the court, do you have to talk to the claimant, the person who's got the claim? Because if that was a murder case and you're being accused of murder, that's effectively asking the victim, have I got an appointment with the court, which is supposed to be completely and utterly independent? I mean, it makes a nonsense of the law, doesn't it?
Well, interestingly, they used the COVID to prevent you going to courts initially.
Right. Very handy.
Yeah, it's very handy. And then it was please let us know if you wish to attend. And I'm thinking, but you've sent me a summons.
Yes.
But which is an invitation.
Right.
So I suppose they're viewing it as an invitation. Are you coming or not, sort of thing. But I was never going to go to a court anyway.
No.
And then eventually that was led to a enforcement agent getting in contact with me. And the important thing is in our community is it's fear-based. A lot of it's fear-based.
Yes.
And I'm not saying now, 2 years down the road, when I knock at the door, my stomach goes over. But I know if you stand in your truth and you know there is no obligation, I think the best course of action is nothing. Just don't answer the door.
Don't answer the door.
Many of us nowadays have these wonderful contraptions that are video doorbells. So the moment the doorbell, unless I'm expecting somebody, then I just don't answer the door.
Yeah.
And if I want to, I could speak through the doorbell and just say you have no appointment.
Yes.
And then I could charge for an appointment if I want to. For
Yeah,
an
I know.
appointment.
I mean, I have a appointment only.
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
my door.
Yes.
The funny thing is, it always makes me laugh because we start putting up these notices in our windows and in our doors and things, which if you were the enforcement agent, you're walking up and down going, I'm looking for this particular house. We do scream a bit because it's like, oh yeah, it's got to be them because they've got all the no trespassing
right.
and appointment only notices, but they take no notice of it. They still bang on the door.
That's right. I mean, if you've got no appointment,
Yeah.
I don't envisage there's a law to say you have to open your door if it's knocked upon. So therefore,
Yes.
Again, I'm standing in my truth.
And-
I don't wish to answer the door.
And if they haven't got a warrant from the court or a court order, then they may as well be McDonald's or Kentucky Fried Chicken or any one of any.
Well, I
company.
could knock on your door and demand £500 if I wanted to. If that's the case.
Yeah, and he did. He didn't. So after 3 months, what happened then? You got your first letter from the council saying you're in default.
Yeah.
Did you answer that?
I was in touch then with the finance manager
right.
then at the council, and again he was coming back with the same. I have an obligation to pay, but again he couldn't come back and tell me exactly the obligation because obviously there is no obligation to pay.
No.
So it went on from there basically, and then I didn't hear much more from the council because it was handed over to the enforcement agents. Whether they bought the debt or whether they act still for the council, it doesn't really matter to me because I won't be paying it anyway.
Right. I mean, if they are acting for the council, you would think that they would and if they are acting because the council has a court summon, a court order, they would have a piece of paper from the court issuing the right for them to go and collect the money. So
Yeah.
if they haven't got that, then they must be working for the council independently.
Well, that's when I think I emailed the magistrates court to find out if there's a case file. Could they send me the case file? Could they tell me if there is a liability out against my name, my date of birth, etc.? And I did get an email back. They couldn't find anything at the magistrates court. So where is this coming from then?
Yes.
It's obviously coming from the council.
Yes.
And the council aren't a court.
No,
they
of
don't
course
have the
they're not.
authority.
No.
So I would call that fraud.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, this is what we've been discussing on the show for some time. It's most definitely fraud, because the law has to be done, but it has to be there's a maxim, isn't it? It has to be seen to be done as well as being done. It has to be transparent and open and all those things.
And honest.
And isn't it supposed to be a court of record? That if you went back to the court and say, well, I'd like to just double check that what you have said I am supposed to pay is what the council are telling me, but they can't find it
There's
because
no case
there's
file.
no record.
No case file.
I mean,
Yeah.
That's staggering, isn't it?
That's the world we're living in, unfortunately, at the moment.
Yeah, but I mean, the more people that start to, this is why we're having the
absolutely,
conversation.
yeah.
The more people start to realise, oh, hang on a minute, that summons, which, as you say, is really only an invitation, hasn't come from the court. And so, therefore, has it any bearing whatsoever, other than we know that the courts have these bulk hearings in which, well, Portsmouth recently had 6,000. I mean, if 6,000 people turned up, how many weeks would that take for them to get through? I mean, it would be a
it's the magistrate needs to sign them.
Yes.
So how can you sign 6,000 in one day and hear 6,000 in one day?
And have you actually had your time in court where he has applied his mind to every case? Because presumably 6,000 people might have 6,000 reasons why they haven't paid or fallen behind.
Absolutely.
I mean, my argument is that you might have been in a coma. If you've been in a coma and you couldn't answer the door, and you couldn't answer letters, and the next thing there's some bloke knocking on there going, I want my money.
Yeah.
It is.
I think, as we said earlier downstairs, if more people realised where their money's going,
yes,
I think that would be enough in this country for people to stop. It's getting away from that fear base. They were used red writing, red letters, boxes. Once you get rid of that fear, like this is a piece of paper.
Yes.
And they're just trying to intimidate me into paying. Once you get past that, and when you realise that you are standing in sovereignty and truth, there's not much more to be frightened of.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, my stomach goes over. I live on my own with my best friend Daniel the cat, but my stomach goes over, and I think, hang on a minute, why are you getting on edge?
Yes.
Why?
Yeah.
Lose that. And once you do,
they can't actually come into your house, kick the door down, and go give us the sodding money.
Yeah.
They can't do that. Do you have a vehicle, a car?
I have a car, and ironically, before this all started, I follow my dad's footsteps. I've always wanted a garage.
Right.
And the strange thing is, I'm probably quite rare. I actually put my car in my garage every single night. So it's safe and it's hidden.
And it's locked.
And it's locked. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's unfortunately, where I am, I haven't got a garage or space, but I may have to fiddle around in my back garden, which is not easy, and contrive some way of getting the van, which is a transit van, in the back garden. But it's going to cost an arm and a leg to do that. That's the only problem.
Well, those people is where I live. Where I lived previously. What I'd say to people, if you do want to follow this route and refrain from paying for the correct reason, declutter and put your car in the garage if you've got one. That's what I'd advise.
Yeah, no, that's declutter. So where are you now then with the situation? Are they, how many times, I suppose this is where people might start to think, is like, okay, so you don't pay. Do they eventually just go away and give up? What happens? Or do they sell that debt to another debt collector? Or what happens? Or are they just determined to keep hassling you?
I think the community is growing, and it will get to such a stage as where they know when it's council tax. And I think peacekeepers have been told that, peacekeepers apparently have said that enforcement agents, with regard to council tax specifically, they're actually realising they're just not going to get their money.
Right.
So whether they start cease and desist and start not going after the money, it's anyone's guess. But I think the further we get down the road with the general thing that's going on in the world, I think it will subside anyway.
Yeah.
I think there are big reformations within the tax system.
I think as more people do wake up to it, and I mean the whole edifice of government is collapsing slowly, and people are beginning to see the backhanders and the fraudulent activity. But that's that one thing that if you pay any tax, you are funding effectively a terrorist outfit who is funding, and didn't Sunak recently just hand over to something like £2 billion to Ukraine?
To Ukraine,
And how do we know what that's being
Did
spent
you agree to that, by the way?
I got in touch. I said, it's very kind of you to write to me. Of course, I'm more than happy for you to go and slaughter people left, right and centre. No, absolutely. I mean, it's despicable and it shouldn't be done.
Absolutely.
No, just to clarify, I didn't.
No.
Just in case.
And nor did I.
And nor did, pretty much 70 odd million people in this country had no... I mean, who would want to go to war anyway?
Well, I think we're fine behind the scenes. Historically, it wasn't necessarily the people that wanted to go to the war. It was the governments that wanted to go to war.
Yes.
Which is very sad. But that's the world we still live in. We're still slaves to the system.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realise it, but we are slaves. All the time we're paying tax, we are slaves to the system. And something needs to give and something needs to change.
Absolutely, yeah. So do you have any other things that you're pushing back against?
I think the obvious one is TV licence.
Yeah.
When I moved, I chose, I was asked, do you want a satellite dish? Do you want it? I haven't got satellite dish, I haven't got an aerial. I've got fantastic channels to watch, actually, on YouTube specifically. This one up here that I watch religiously for the intelligence that you share with us.
There's an extra special one today.
Absolutely.
Of course.
And there's plenty of other channels to watch. I do watch the obvious online streaming movie channels, etc. But no, I don't pay. I haven't paid TV license for years.
Did you have any hassle with that?
I just get the odd letter that we will still knock at. Well, you can knock at my door, but it doesn't mean to say I'm going to answer it.
No, I mean, I have said this before, but with the TV license, I just told them I had no television. I got in touch with them and said, I don't have the television, I don't want to pay this. And I think I had a phone call, or I might have rung them, I can't remember how it went now, and they said, okay, that's fine. I mean, they were very civil with me.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they said, we'll be in touch in 2 years' time to ask if you don't have a TV. And they got in touch in 2 years' time, and I said, no change, and I've not heard a thing from them.
And I think that's what you did, I did.
Right.
And a lot of people say, I'm not going to phone them, I'm not going to tell them. I said, well, why don't it make your life easier?
Yeah.
So sometimes, you've only got to do it on the internet. I don't need one. No, and just send it, and they'll leave you alone for 2 years. What the attitude some people have is they want the argument.
Yes.
They want to have a go on the phone. Yes. And I thought, well, what's the point of that? We're supposed to be we want peace.
Yes.
And we want to live peacefully with each other.
Absolutely.
So why would you want to start arguing with people? Just do the natural thing to me, and for yourself, it sounds like. Just fill it out on form, and we still don't have to pay it.
No. That's right. We've got.
And if we all did that, we get the same outcome.
Yes, and we do have to be honourable, don't we? I mean, part of the whole thing is to be peaceful and honourable and all of that. And I found the TV licence incredibly easy, and because of that, it was empowering to a degree. So, when April comes, I've got one more payment now on the council tax, which I'm umming and ahhing to pay or not, because I've paid all the time I've been listening to all the different people and the sovereign people and the legal people and what have you on the show. I've been thinking, I must do this at some point. I still learning, because I was learning all the way through, and of course I was paying the council tax because I didn't want to do it wrong, and then people to hold that Richard Phobes, and put me up as a reason to frighten other people. So, but it's playing on my nerves now that if I pay it, I may be slaughtering men, women and children in different parts of the world, or indeed leaving people in this country on the streets who that money could have gone to. If I'm paying, I don't know what it is, it's a couple of £100 a month. I mean, that's like a week or two for somebody on the street. I may as well do that than pay it to the council and give it to the bloody government. But come April, my plan on this show particularly is to keep making this argument that we're paying for terrorism, that we, if they could change the system, and as you said, pay it locally, and we saw the improvements, then that's okay.
Well, that's when the community comes into it. What we spoke about earlier. If we, and I 100%, those people who can't pay it, their hard times, etc., and if they volunteer their services to help out in the community by doing various different things to make our edges of the roadways neater, tidier. Some people might be able to fill some of the potholes that we experience all the time. Then I think a lot of us in a community base would be quite happy with that. But we know fundamentally at the moment that's just not happening.
No. I mean, that's the thing. You can't say to the council, I can't afford the thing. Rather than fine me and make my life even worse or send me to prison or whatever it is, I'll give you 2 or 3 hours a week and I'll contribute to the community. I mean that seems a much more sensible thing. You've got somebody helping the community. They may in time want to be a counsellor or something, or help, or grow. But instead, the whole system is making us, them and us, anti-human policies, and making people resent the council. Surely the council don't want that. They don't want to be resented so that we, in the end, we just get very angry with them.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily the council. I think it's the local, our government. They want the control. They just want us to there's a saying I heard in the last couple of years: "You'll own nothing but be happy."
Oh yes,
I think you've heard that.
Where did we hear that?
I mean, that's what it appears to be going down the road at the moment. They're trying to take from us. So ultimately, we won't have anything. But my beliefs are the total opposite. I think we'll head for much, much better times because the communities and the nation are rising slowly. They know something's going on. They know it's not right. We just need more to keep on board. But when it comes to the original topic, council tax, it can be a very lonely thing if you're one in your street and you don't want to pay it. And that's where community comes again. Get together, get support. Someone who's been through it. I've helped a few people in the past. Look, I'm by your side here, and we go through it together, and I'll support you all the way.
Yes, we've got a little noises off of somebody's phone.
Is it mine?
Might be, but don't let it worry you. You're welcome to answer it if you wish.
I think it might be the parking.
Oh, right. There we go. Oh, yes, because you've only got 2 hours, so you don't want to get a parking ticket. So there we go. Is it a parking thing?
Yeah, just right, but I have got another hour.
You got another hour. Fantastic. There we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Extra hour.
So, but that's another thing, isn't it? Actually, I mean, you mentioned that. Everywhere you go now, you're being penalised. You can't park without having to download software, and multiple places have different softwares. You've got to have your phone on board. It's all digital. You can't just feed the meter in the old ways, and the speed traps that are there. I mean, I was saying this in my monologue earlier today as I record this, is that originally those cameras were there for the hot spots, black spots where there was definite I think you had to have 6 deaths or something before you had a camera. But now they're just putting them up willy-nilly as a cash cow.
ULEZ.
Well, and then there's ULEZ as well.
And I support, obviously, I've got the
Blade Runners.
The Blade Runners, yes. Fantastic guys.
Fantastic. They've got some lovely blades and they run. And it's amazing how when they leap up and use some special technology.
It's like Edward Scissorhands.
Yes, there we go. It is incredible what goes on. But now it's interesting you say that, because I was talking to a lady this morning who told me that there is, and I've asked her to provide the evidence of this, there is... what do you call it, case law now, that you cannot use CCTV footage to charge people, but nobody knows that.
Right, okay.
Which, if that's true, that knocks the ULEZ cameras completely out of the waters, that you should not be ensnared.
Well, that means any speed camera then, doesn't it?
Well, I would have thought so. So, where's the right camera? There it is. So don't take my word for that, because I'm waiting to get complete reference on that. But if that is true and it's fairly recent, then that's good. But
That's interesting, because does that mean to say if you've got CCTV to protect your property that you can't use that against a criminal?
I think it's to do with cars and the registration and CCTV. Now, whether that is the same, and it may not be, with a camera that takes a snap as opposed to moving images. So it might be the moving images where the problem is. I don't know, but if anybody knows and has got the evidence on that, please send that in. That would be great. There is that case. Did you see the case with Mr. Leighton and the enforcement agencies that is now on the statute books?
Which is interesting then again, because that means that should go through to the enforcement agents to say, well, what's the point of going after when we've got this to fall back on? When you prove there's no obligation, basically.
Yes.
So it'd be interesting the way forward when I've very recently got another letter from enforcement agents stating they're going to visit at 6 a.m. in the morning. Well, I can't remember the last time I got up at 6 a.m. only when I was about 10 to do a paper round. So I won't be answering the door at 6 a.m. in the morning anyway.
Well, I get up early, but I wouldn't answer the door at 6 a.m. unless I knew who was coming.
Absolutely.
You've got, you know who's coming, so you know not to answer the door, which is...
And I very much doubt they'll turn up.
Yeah. Why would they... I don't understand that. Why would they send you a letter to say, "Oh, we're going to visit your property at this time.
Yeah,
we'd love for you to pay."
Historically, when they give me a time and a date, nothing's happened. It's literally on a day when I'm not expecting anything. So it doesn't really bother me whether they turn up or not. There won't be an answer at the door.
No.
And also, they haven't made an appointment, and the appointments run at about £250. So unless I get that payment first, they certainly won't be answering the door.
And so just explain that, because that's something that people can do, isn't it? They can say, if you're going to contract with me, these are my terms.
That's right.
So how does that work?
Well, number one, they're a third party. They're an interloper. So I certainly don't have. If I've got no contract with the council, I certainly haven't got a contract with a enforcement officer. So again, they have no jurisdiction with me to actually, attend my property.
So, but if they want to have a conversation with you, you're charging them.
Absolutely. And do you think really an enforcement officer is going to pay me £250?
No,
I very much doubt
it. I don't think so. Because if they're paying you the £250, they know the chances are they're not going to get what they're asking from you back.
Well, they obviously, if I accept that £250, I've made a contract with them.
Yes.
But the contract doesn't mean to say they're going to fulfil their requirement of extracting money from me.
You've only agreed to speak to them.
Yeah.
For 200 quid.
And then I'll be asking them to prove their obligation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which hasn't been proven.
Which they can't do. And that was in that case.
Yeah.
Which is, again, it's fascinating. And although the case failed on the harassment side of things, there is the sense that you could push that if you are being harassed.
On private property as well.
Yeah.
Because you have to ask them 3 times, I believe, to leave because they're trespassing. And if they don't believe, then you have every right. And Englishman protects his castle at the end of the day. So you're quite... But then again, in the legal justice system at the moment, I don't know where that would go. No,
that's very interesting. But I mean, and the other thing in that case was, if they do come after you, I think they were fined. Was it £4,000?
That's right. Yeah.
So I mean, a friend of mine said what he's done is he's taken the what would you call it, the outline of the court and said this is the final outcome, and he's laminated it. And if anybody comes to the door, he says, "Well, that's fine. You might want to read this because I will be taking you to court if you persist, and I will be fining you because the precedent is there."
I'd like a copy of that.
Yeah.
I do exactly the same.
Do the same. I mean, I started to think my front door might end up being a bit of a notice board with all these things. And of course, the other thing is, as we said, if you're paying your taxes, you're actually contributing. So therefore, one of the thoughts I thought, not that I want to answer the door, but if I had got cornered, say I was just arriving home and he's pounced on me and he said, "Oh, Mr. Popes," and you go, "Oh, okay," and you're forced to have that conversation, I would be very much then saying, "Hang on, before we go any further, can I ask you if you are interested in funding? Do you agree with funding the death of women and children? Because if you do, then if you don't agree with all of that, why are you paying your taxes? And if you are paying your taxes, or if you work for a company and you're on PAYE, you're accepting those terms. And so therefore it's my duty now to go to a police officer, a police constable,
Yes.
get the terms right, haven't we? And say to them, this man is aiding and abetting war crimes and is funding terrorism. So actually, I'm serving you, mate, not the other way round.
Unfortunately, that's our world, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the world we live in, but unfortunately, they're just not listening to
No,
it. It's a bit like when a police officer comes up to you and spills off, he wants to say, do you understand? Well,
Yes.
No, I hear you.
I hear you, but I don't
But
stand under you.
and I might in a stand, but I don't stand under you.
Exactly, yeah. So, well, this is it. How long do you think you can hold out for?
I hold out until I'm satisfied that my money is going to places where it should be going.
Right, yeah, very good answer.
And that is basically our community, our local community.
Yeah.
And when I can see improvement then, ultimately, when I can see the government is actually working with us and not against us, and then down from that, our local councils are working with us and listening to us and acting on what we're saying, then I'm quite happy to contribute.
And as we said earlier, more and more people, I think, are slowly having the knowledge and getting the confidence to push back. And instead of just moaning and saying, "Oh, isn't it terrible?" we're actually now beginning to push back against the tyranny. And I think also people don't necessarily need to know about like in our world, the Agenda 21, Agenda 30. They don't need to know all that detail.
No,
they
exactly.
just are feeling the pressure and going, I don't want this. This is not us. Here we are in the 21st century at the top of our game as human beings, and yet everything seems to be against us. I mean, it's just mad, isn't it?
It's mad. And you get to an age, and I'm 40, nearly 60, and why didn't I know this before? Why didn't I act before? But everyone has their individual journey, and I had to go on my journey to realise the bigger picture. And it came quite late in the day. I wish this had happened when I was 20, so that I could actually have acted quicker, helped other people, waking everybody else up, and join the party, basically, because that's basically what it is. Because the enlightened people and the people who know the reality are really, really decent, good people. They really are good people.
That is such an interesting. I mean, as we're recording this, I 2 nights ago I was doing a talk for about 150 people in the New Forest, and one of the things, and I've been doing quite a few of these talks, and it's been amazing. And one of the things I said to Julia over the last 12 months, assessing the things that we've been doing, we've met such fantastic people, and everybody's on your wavelength. We've met so many great friends, and you're not having those difficult conversations because everybody is able to listen. They may disagree with certain opinions that you have, but they're not going, oh, because you disagree with it, you're an idiot. You're not polarized. The people are much more open to all sorts of stuff.
I find also, and I think you'll find the same, when you're actually I had some friends come over and I spent Christmas with all enlightened people, and the energy, it's the warmth and the up feeling that when you're with like-minded people, and when you delve more into frequencies, vibrations, dimensions, etc. I said to my friend Alison, who's very wonderful lady, and I said, do you notice the energy when you're with? She said, oh, well, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can go into a room of people that aren't on your wavelength and may have gone down a different path altogether, and the energy is totally different. It's a cold, and
low.
You feel like you can't speak, and you don't really want to speak or communicate with those people. But when you're with people on the same wavelength, like the moment I arrived here and we met, I just felt that I was lifted because the energies, our energies completely matched with each other.
That's very kind of you.
And I find that more and more, and I only want generally to meet those sort of people. I mean, I like being I like living on my own, but when I'm with like-minded people, my energy, and I can feel it when I go home. A deep breath, and I'm back to where I was to start off with, and I find that really, really interesting.
And we went through a hell of a lot of that very low energy and that fear in 2020.
Yeah.
And then 2021, when the rollout was coming and some of us weren't happy about what they wanted to do to us or give us as a nice little present. And especially as we started to realize just what kind of a present that was. And we felt that low vibration and meeting up with people. And I'm very lucky running the channel the way it is, and meeting people like you and so many others, that it's such a joy, because you've got so many things in common, and yet you've also got things not in common that you're open to and learning about. It's just fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've got so much other channels as well that we can follow on YouTube. I've got square eyes sometimes because I'm just watching interviews and podcasts on various different topics, and I can't contain it all.
No.
I think I've got one of those brains that says, yeah, you need that, and compartmentalize these different, because I'm into the health issues as well as the fraud of the tax system, etc. And it's I watch various channels basically, but to contain it all,
you did say to me when you arrived, you said, you must be a very knowledgeable man. And I had to admit that, well, because of all the people on the show, a lot of knowledge has come in, but that retaining it stuff is very difficult. And
it is.
And people often say, oh, Richard, in that video you did 6 months ago when he was explaining that, can you tell me more about it? You go, I can't even remember the interview.
Just get them back on.
Yeah. And that's another thing that on the channel, of course, I'm trying to get some of the people I've had on quite early on, like Chris Coverdale, because his message was so important. And since then, I mean, I had about 50,000 subscribers, which I thought was huge. And now just under 200,000 subscribers. It's great to get these people back because people are seeing them for the very first time again. So that's really good. And we're learning so many interesting, like you say, with the health. I mean, who trusts the NHS now?
Actually, I told you I moved last year. I haven't even deregistered or registered with the GP because we're all responsible for our own health at the end of the day, and there are so many things that have been hidden from us in the past.
Yes.
I detox. I had a flying career for 32 years, and I knew I was open to radiation for all that time, which I didn't know at the time. And I had various interventions put in me, which were completely safe as far as I know. They've been on the market for donkey's years. So I knew I needed to detox. It was a wonderful ex-nurse, ex-crew member, Kate Shamarani, that I knew quite well at the time. So I detox regularly. Every single morning I juice every morning. I do a certain other thing every single morning and eat healthily as much as I can and treat myself every now and again. But I think if we all take responsibility, accountability for our own health, then we'll be fine. And we look more naturally.
Yes.
Like I believe, I even give my cat colloidal silver.
Oh, do you?
Yes, because he's got a gum.
Right. Oh, that's an interesting thing, yes.
Feline stomatosis. So I give him that every now and again to kill any bacteria in his mouth. I want him here as long as possible.
Yeah.
So it's my responsibility to look after him, and look after ourselves. But there's various different things to actually detoxify our body, which will prevent us from developing further illnesses, I think.
And that,
to my belief.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
I'm not advertising anything. I'm just, take responsibility.
And that is such the key thing. And I've been saying we need to take back the responsibility because we've just given away everything.
Yeah.
We've registered everything to other people. We've given away our responsibility, and we've sort of now, you look at the great numbers of people who just go, well, the council should do something about that, or the government should do something about that, and never do they go, well, perhaps I should do something about it. And I think that pushing back to say, actually, I don't want women and children and men, women and children. I don't want innocent people to be slaughtered in war zones, or people sleeping on the streets, or even ladies walking their dogs being challenged by council people saying, have you got a poo bag? I mean, it is totally, utterly ridiculous. And then being charged £100. I mean, educating people like that and empowering. I mean, you must get a sense of, even though it can be frightening when you've got the man knocking on the door saying, where's our money? It must be a sense of empowerment to say, actually, I'm doing this because I'm a principled man.
Yeah, exactly that. Again, it's standing in truth and sovereignty. It's all about that. But going back to what you just said, not interviewing you, but just going back to what you said, is it remarkable that the government asked our community nationwide to take in Ukrainian refugees,
Yes.
yet they let our own national people, born and bred here, live on the streets?
Yeah. And
It's
deal
just-
with the rubber boat people.
Exactly. Again, you're supposed to be working for the people,
Yeah.
our people.
Our people.
And I feel very sorry for any refugees anywhere, but who comes first?
And you know, the irony there is it's that same old thing that if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after others. And if the government had done a much better job of empowering us so that we could take more of the responsibility, so we weren't such a burden, particularly on the health. If we say COVID during that period of the lockdown, if they'd been on our side and they felt we had to be locked down, if that scenario was a thing, why were they not promoting eat healthy, go out and do your walk as much as you can, get out into the sun,
Vitamin D,
get your immune system up? Instead of that, it was the complete opposite. Don't go out, don't hug anyone, don't have any interaction with people is so damn vital. And that people were lonely, and people were eating crap that was delivered to the door. They were frightened to go out. They were frightened to meet one another. I mean, it was so awful. But if you look after yourself and improve people's housing, got people off the street, help those people who are disabled and can't work, then we could have done a really nice job with anybody who needs the help. But we need to start here first.
And that's exactly what we go back to the very, very beginning. If we knew our council tax was going to the right places,
yes.
we wouldn't be facing all those issues.
Exactly. I mean, it is just obscene, really, what's been going on. But do you not think, in some ways, this has kind of had to happen? We've been going down this journey for so long. We've come to that point where you and I are awake. The audience is awake, and others are now slowly becoming aware of this great harm. And what a time to be alive.
I feel really positive. In fact, sounds with everything going on around the world at the moment, and I follow USA politics as well, and that's very, very interesting in itself. And I really love the fact that our lovely Nigel Farage was recognised by Donald Trump yesterday at the Iowa, which was fantastic. To me, I think Nigel Farage has a big place in our community. And I personally feel he was on a certain television show recently to get his face out there. So that was very interesting to me. But I feel very positive. I felt positive for the past probably 18 months following certain streams and intel, etc. So I do feel very positive. I think we're going in the right direction. And again, I do feel more and more people are climbing aboard and realising the bigger picture. Something's not right. I mean, I speak to some of my friends who aren't awake, and I sort of drop these comments, and they said, well, we know something's not right. I said, well, yeah, something isn't right. Delve deeper, go down that rabbit hole.
Just to have a little look.
Yeah, have a look, because the world is a fantastic place. We just need to make it better. We need to go back, and realise. And
I think we've had to go through this.
Yes.
So although I think there are these personal battles that we're all going to happen to fight, and some of them might be the enforcement officers banging on your door, but I think we've got to have a steely nerve, hold our own, stand in sovereignty, as you've said, and in not so long time, I don't think that we're going to start to see the worm turning and the world turning the right way round.
I think this year we're going to see big changes. I don't know when.
No,
I don't think there's so many dimensions flying around at the moment, and timescales, etc. But I do think this year, in my friend Alice said, we're in the year of magenta. She's a colour therapist, so it's going to be a rocky road still. I think there's going to be a lot of surprises down the road. I think it might get worse before it gets better, but I think we're in for a lot of news and exposure this year, definitely. From what I'm reading, astrologers, spiritualists, channelers, colour therapists, etc. All those come together and they're saying basically the same thing.
Yes.
So
No,
whether you believe that sort of channeling, a lot of people think, oh, that's a load of rubbish. I personally don't believe that. I think there's a lot in that, and astrology, etc. So I do think it could be rocky. I think we could see big changes, and I think it's all for positive.
Well, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right, and that's the message I've been, saying during my talks and stuff when I'm out there. And again, you're just feeding on, and it's also something, I've been, I suppose, connecting to the
gut feeling and intuition.
Yes, it's just you call it your gut feeling, if you like. And I feel we're going to go down this rocky road, but it's going to be a smooth one at the end. And we've just got to hold our nerve, as I said. So, Mr. Wilks, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Richard. It's great.
And being on the show and telling us your personal story. I think that's so interesting to get that personal story, because it's all very well the sovereign people saying, oh, well, this is how you do it and this is it. But you're somebody doing it. You're facing them off. I'm now starting on that journey,
I'm right behind you.
Thank you very much. And that's the thing. I mean, I'm very privileged because there's lots of people I can call on, and I just worry about the single parent woman who's desperately trying to feed her 3 kids, and then there's this beast of a man demanding money that she hasn't got. I think that's just awful.
That's where community. That's where communities come together, form your own Telegram group or WhatsApp group, and your local communities. So if you do get the knock on the door, press a button, call out, and then people can come and support you and be there with you.
Yes.
Especially those single people that are on their own,
or the old and yes. People, the vulnerable people.
Absolutely.
Particularly the elderly who have served our country so long, and they haven't had that chance. They haven't had the information that we have. They've not been able to stand in their power because it's been so hidden from them. Whereas those are the sort of people we've got to help and be there for and look after and be of service.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed this interview. Hopefully I'll have more like this in the future, but I'll be back with more monologues and more wonderful interviews, etc. But thank you so much for coming in, Mr. Wilks. And do let me know if you are also pushing back, and if you've got any tips or hints on what's worked for you, that would be really good. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. From Mr. Wilks and myself, until next time, look after yourself and see you then. Bye-bye.